Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live, or whatever time it is for you. We're going to do a reflection card, and I've just stamped this quote on the outside. I just realized I have it a little bit off center, but oh well. And this is going to be a quarter page reflection card. We have a 4.25 by 5.5, and the same thing up above that we'll be adding in with this piece of semi-gloss white cardstock. Okay. Now I was thinking about doing a vellum piece up here, but I thought, okay, let's just start out. Just build a. We'll start things one at a time. Okay, I'll do a reflection card, and maybe I'll do a vellum piece up here to be reflected in this area at some later time. I just wanted to do a quick. A little experiment here. Okay, so what are we talking about here? I want to do something like this type of reflected area down at the base, but let's merge it with a couple of the things I've been playing around with. Specifically, one of the things yesterday, using these pink little blossoms in this triptych piece right here, this really, I don't know, whatever, minimalist type of composition right here. But the composition itself will look more like this. But I want to go with some pink blossoms. And I'm kind of wondering how to do that right now. I'm wondering if I should stamp out the imagery in black and just go over it with, add the pink in over the top of it with the acrylic paint pens, or if I should color the trees pink to begin with. Sometimes that it doesn't have enough body though when you just do like pink trees or something like that. You want to have a little bit more depth and value in it. Where if I do them in black, I think the acrylic paint pens might be opaque enough where we can go over the trees but have some of that black showing through a little bit. So we're just going to try it that way and see what we can come up with. So, all right, so I'm usually going with a strong kind of waterside area, but this is supposed to be this kind of mystic terrain, so everything's in a lot of cloudy fog, and diffusion. So we'll see how that goes down here at the base of this. So I want to have it like a misty area at the base of this, and these little pink little blossoms, and has a lot of that going on in the background there. So I don't know what it's going to look like, or if how it's going to work, but we'll see here. Hello, Bugs, Marius Harvey, Linda, Jeannie, Candy, Sandy. Hello, CM Hawkins. Good to see you all. I hope you had a nice week. And hope you will have a nice weekend, if I forget to say that later on here. All right, let's re-ink this stays on a little bit here, because I only cut off one. I think I only did one piece of this semi-gloss here. All right. And I haven't re-inked my stays on in a few days or a week or something like that. So let's see how it goes. All right. So let's see. I'm going to try to go for a little bit more. I don't know what you'd call it. Ink transitions variation within the image itself. I know how much to remove, when I'm using dye-based inks, but I haven't been using StazOn long enough to know how much to kind of remove right here. And if I take off too much or not enough, I'm wondering if it will dry out before I have a chance to stamp it. So getting used to the StazOn a little bit, but I've been using a lot of water-based media on this. Like I might do a little bit of not watercolor painting, but using some of that watercolor pencil with this background, because I kind of like that look. So stamping this out in StazOn is probably a good idea for that, especially if you're going to go into the piece immediately. If I let that, my dye-based ink sit and dry for a period of time, I don't think it really matters too much. It didn't seem to put the impressions back into solution when I was going over the a scene that I'd stamped out in the dye-based inks, I don't know, whatever, a week ago or something like that. It didn't blur or anything like that when I went over it with water, like a little water wash. But yeah, like if I was to, if that was in dye-based inks and I went over it, and I don't know, whatever, 2 or 3 minutes from now, it might all just completely blur on me, I'm guessing. So, yeah. Draw a frame around the quote at the angle, so that'd be awesome. I should do that. I don't know, and I should do it at an angle and have like leaves or something coming out from behind it, like it's kind of positioned in there or something like that. Or like anything, I'll just splatter paint over the whole thing, All right, so okay, so this is going to be mirrored. So let's take a look here. All right, so let's go. Now, if this isn't a mirror card format, it does kind of, to some degree, not dictate, but, where I position my other images in here. I was just thinking about the larger mystic trees. I've been doing the smaller one in the background. I think, did I do that on every single one of these? I think I might have, or no, not on that one. I'm trying to think if I've used this larger one right here yet. I might have done it in a one of those stamp sketching videos. Maybe I'll do that. I'm just doing it because I just haven't done that yet, so I want to see what these things look like. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is there's the mystic trees left and right, and they're roughly on the same scale. Okay, just like that. All right, and what I've been doing is I've been using the mystic hill like that to create a little bit more depth with the opposing side like that. But let's bring the right side a little bit closer to us in terms of scale here. So maybe I'll go like this, and maybe I guess I can bring in that other one like farther back here. Okay, let me try that here. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. If I decide to do that. If you've just joined in, thanks so much for joining in, and I hope my kind of decision making isn't driving you nuts. This isn't like, okay, like an instructional video. It's like these videos are all about kind of like exploration. So I have not done this before, and I'm just trying to figure it out right now. But I know what you're talking about, though. If you're getting really irritated with all the, you know, with all those kind of indecision sound effects, that type of thing. Okay, so that is on this right side here. So we've created a little bit of space like this. This just by nature of the relative height of this positioning right here. In terms of Western perspective, the things that are higher up on the scenes, the farther back they are in terms of space. So you can make things, if you're going with smaller scale things like this, maybe I should use that one in there. Then you're creating more distance in between your objects, okay? All right, so that being said, all right, now here's the thing that I need to remember more often than I do a lot of times is on these mirror cards, okay? I've usually kept things fairly simple in terms of the reflection because having more contrast between your objects like that and the background, they tend to read a little bit better in this reflected area, okay? That might not be the case though with these mystic images, okay? Because these areas in between foreground, midground, background, it's supposed to represent like a lot of clouds and mist in between. So there's a lot of separation inherently in that because these areas in between aren't filled in with darker tones, land masses if it was land or something like that. So I might not have to worry about that too much. So this might be a little bit different. Where we can add these other things in here. So, okay, now what I was talking about, here's these Mystic Hills. See, I can put these back here too. But I'm looking down here, and that would kind of obscure some of that silhouette right there. But if I stamp this light enough, maybe it doesn't matter. So I might go for it. And see this one right here? See, it's not, I mean, if I hold this at an angle like this, but usually someone will look at the card like this. So this is high enough up here where maybe it's not going to be visible in this reflected area. So, maybe I can just add this in here. Okay, this is what I want to play around with here too. What I was talking about, that varied impression value, okay, by wiping off some of the ink. I was thinking about trying to do more of the second impression type of thing, but I'm not quite sure how much to take off. Let's see, what stays on when I stamp it out that one time. Okay, I was wondering if it would be, if I stamp this out and by the time I get to the second one, maybe it would just be like too dry on this. You know how fast stays on dry, so I think that'll work though. It looks like, it's maybe especially because I just re-inked this too. Okay, so we're going to blot this off like that. Then I want it to look like it's in the distance, so I'm going to wipe off this whole perimeter like this, where it's kind of overlapping this other image. And I'll stamp this a little bit higher up like that. So hopefully it stamps out in like a 25% gray, I'm guessing, or under. I don't want it like 5%, it's going to be like invisible. But yeah, that looks pretty good like that. So I don't know. It's like you look at those trees, and I think that's like a 25% gray, 30 maybe up here. But see, we can still see this imagery in here. You know what I mean? Decently. So it looks farther back in space just because of the nature of the value changes like that. And then let's see what this looks like right here. I guess you can see it down there still, but I think that looks pretty decent right there still. Now see, if I was doing other types of scenes where, this area up here is going to get filled in with darkness, then when you look in the reflection down here, we'd have a lot of objects that are kind of not really defined. So that's where you need this kind of negative space in here, or just the kind of more simple area. I was thinking about adding in that red sun in here too somewhere, because I think that'd be cool reflected down here. But I've been doing that like every day for the past 3 days, so I didn't want to do that again. Let's see. Mary loves the and the insert. No, I'm just joking. Well, those are the types of things I'm thinking about, though. Hello, Caroline, Jeline, and Jen. How are you? Okay, so that is it as far as that goes up there. We're going to be adding in some pinks and things like that up there. And okay, so here's what I've been doing too. Or I did it on one of the pieces from these past couple scenes. I think on this one here, it was all watercolored pencils. And I haven't been using watercolored pencils, over the years, so I don't have really a lot of control over it. But I found that, going over it with the paint, the paintbrush with some water and putting that watercolor paint back into solution. If it was all watercolors, I found, for me, I'm not practiced at it, so I found it a little bit precarious. So the areas where I want it to be a little bit darker, I think I'm going to use just my standard, Prismacolor colored pencil, okay? And this lower section right here where it's going to get a little bit more washy with the colored pencil, I figured I'd use the watercolor pencil for that. That's my thought with that. Okay, so instead of just making this all kind of grayscale like these, I do love these grayscale pieces like this with the coloring like that. Because I'm not adding in that kind of spot color with that up there, I thought I'd add a little bit more tone in these land masses, just with a little bit of colored pencil. Okay, so let's try that out, okay? I still have to get used to these hills and everything like that being kind of shaded, dark to light from top to bottom, as opposed to the other way around where, objects are usually being, whatever, lit by sky figures, suns, moons, something like that, and being top lit. So I find it interesting to do this. When you do things bottom lit too, like I don't know, some monster movie, where they shade someone from below and up, it doesn't necessarily make things scary in that type of scenario, it does, but they do it for drama. So having this kind of cloud area like that, I find these to be, reasonably dramatic like that, with all that cloud structuring down below like that. And for me, it's different too, because usually I have colors from my illuminating source. So if there's a yellow, whatever, sun or something like that, or warm color moon or cool color moon or something like that, blue moon or something like that, I usually have those colors reflected in the light that's reflecting back up at it. But kind of leaving it all grayscale is, I don't know, there's a different spirit to it. And like I said, it's in one of these videos, it's more like a spot color. In a lot of cameras there, you can go to, on filters, you can go to spot coloring, and whatever color you designate is the only colors that show up, and everything else is grayscale. So it's kind of I always like that look. So that, those kind of rising sun pieces are kind of like that. All right, so I'm just going into this black right now. Maybe I should get to the colors first before I get to this shade. But it looks like I'm not going to. I'm having fun just kind of working the tones like that. Okay, now here's the thing. If you want that to look like it's farther back in the distance, don't go too dark with it. So keep that kind of relatively light in accordance with the darkest objects on that. Now, remember, I'm going to bring in some pinks, I think, on those trees too. So we'll see if and how it works out. Okay, let's see. If any of you got the images, I've been enjoying looking at your pieces and watching your creations posted. For those that don't know, it's mostly on Facebook, where I see the artwork. If you are on Facebook, and if you're not a member of the Stampscapes, it's called Stampscapes 2 Facebook, right? That great, but just look up Stampscapes, and it'll bring up the group, and check it out. You can see everyone's work in there from over the past several years. It's really quite cool, the range of different techniques and compositional arrangements, usages of the designs, etc. Okay, this is using the black watercolor pencil. Okay, here, let me get to those colors here before I completely forget about them. Okay, so here's a little bit of green. Oh, gosh. Okay, so here's my question. Should I go in with the green watercolor pencil or the green Prismacolor, both. Maybe I should try the watercolor pencil. I don't want anything really dramatic, you know, with a lot of intensity or anything like that. I still want this to look fairly washy and, you know, I don't know if it would be subtle, but, you know, nothing too bright. So, let's see. These are my brand new pencils here. Let's go with this dark green like that. And how about this brown? Here's a darker brown. When I was a little kid, you know, and getting a new set of crayons or it was a lot of I think they didn't call them dye-based inks, but you know, they're basically dye-based inks. They're watercolor pens, you know, and they were cheap ones. You know, you'd use them for a little bit and they'd kind of dry up on you. But when they were brand new, I didn't want to use them. You know, when they look, yeah, all nice and uniform and everything like that. Things like that, and chocolate Easter bunnies, didn't want to break it, you know, and eat it. All right, so just going into the area, which is just a little bit of tone, okay? Just a little hint of that hue. I mean, I still want that pink, you know, to be kind of the dominant, you know, hue that stands out in here, but oh, having a little bit of this might bring a little bit of visual interest into the piece. It kind of gives the, yeah, this green right here is kind of neutral, but I was going to say it gives a little bit of temperature change. Yeah, this green right here is fairly neutral. Maybe this brown will add a little bit of, you know, warmth to that grayscale area. I think with this brown here, it's fairly dark, so I'll use it mostly in the shadows. One of the things I have to get used to when using colored pencils and things like watercolor pencils, where I don't go over it with water, is kind of getting used to kind of directional texturing, you know, depending on what angle you're applying this in, you know, because you can use that texture for kind of strategic effect, you know, or you can put it on in like different angles too, and it, you know, might not flow really well. So there's that too. Kind of visual directional flow, I should say. All right, so that's that right there. That's a little boring though, isn't it? Here, let's go with a little bit of a brighter green. I get gutsier as I go along using these this new media, but still far from bold. You know? I mean, I'm not applying it in like a total, you know, a gingerly way or anything like that. But I'm just not applying it in like a thick slathering or something like that, you know, for a lot of brightness and intensity. All right, so that is that. I think that is it with those tones. Yeah, let's go a little bit more like that. All right. Okay, so let's give these. I've been giving these types of objects a little bit of a base too, even though they're supposed to go in the clouds. You know, when I apply white pigment ink over them or something like that, you're able to see the shadow through it still. So you get a little bit of you know, the best of both worlds. You can kind of create a little bit of foundation and waterside kind of shading on this, but it can still be very, very light and airy. You know, whether you use, you know, some water with this or not, I'm finding. See, I'm trying to get these lines like nice and horizontal across there, so you always kind of move the paper in a direction that's going to be the most conducive for that mark. So in other words, I'm not going like this. I can't get this like this. This is awkward. So I just turn it like this, and this is the way my hand will naturally go, okay? All right. Now these are not really great here, but remember I'm going to apply that water to them and kind of dissolve them a little bit. And I go like that. All right, let's see. I need to get this little boat in here somewhere. Oh, let me see. I almost forgot. So this is going to be, let's see, this is going to be down here. I forgot. So maybe up here, because I want them in an area that's relatively lighter. I could put them right here too, huh? Like that. So it's this real small little boat. Okay, so that is that. And let me see, where am I going to put those crooked limbs too with those little pink blossoms? I think right around in here. So, all right, trying to figure it out. Let's give this a little bit of a vignette up here too. And we'll do that with, well, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get to that. So what's new and exciting out there? Besides these new stamps. Are there any new and exciting mediums out there? I want to do another printable vinyl piece with those little baby turtles. I was doing that. Let me see. Do I still have it, or did I give that one away? That mirror card with the. Oh yeah, that mirror card with the ash trees. This paper right here, I want to use not in a mirror situation, but I want to stamp out instead of this piece right here. I want to do the Seaside Cove in here, and have this kind of this iridescent, you know, or whatever reflective rainbowy type of thing with the Seaside Cove, and that sparkly area is going to be the sand, and that's where I want to do those little baby turtles crawling through that, you know, because it's kind of like a magical looking vinyl, you know, with that type of coloring on there. And I figured, you know, when those baby turtles, that's like a, you know, it's one of those like nature's kind of magic moments. And I figured that would be a really cool paper for that. You know, life's little magical moments with, you know, magical stamping paper. Okay, so I'm just trying to blend this little water line out a little bit. So see, I just added a little bit of that watercolor pencil down there. I think, unless it was the, I was using the my Prismacolor pencil mistakenly at one time, and I thought I was using my watercolor pencil. It was on a pre-recorded thing, so I was like, thank God this one wasn't live, you know. Yeah, yeah, this would be a nice little, what I was mentioning before, when you do these little inlets too, you create this kind of visual little passage or, you know, kind of a visual passage for your viewer when you're doing these little inlets like this. And kind of the, the eyes, you know, the visual path for something is something that's, you know, you can kind of really play around with when doing your compositions like that. And you can figure, you know, what is someone going to be looking at first, you know, and which direction is their eye going to go in. So it's almost like you're doing like a, you know, you're doing you know, a card or whatever. It doesn't have to be a scene either. Scenes are very conducive for that, you know, because people go and hike and, you know, nature and things like that. They walk through it. But with any kind of piece, everyone goes through a little bit of a journey in terms of, you know, the pathway that they go on. They land on, you know, certain types of visual landing points, you know, focal points. And so when you're doing scenes like this, one of the things that you can consider is that path that people are going to go on. So it's almost like, okay, so what I'm getting at is, you know, these are static pieces like this, but you can create these little passages or whatever, you know, you're doing, even if it's on like a quarter-page card like this. And you think about the direction that someone's going to go in. So it's almost like you're kind of designing, you know, a little bit of a ride or something like that in some ways. So when you're doing your pieces, you can think about the spirit of that. I'm wondering, was this the watercolored pencil that I used down here, or was it the barrel color? Because it's not really spreading out as much. I'm gonna have to look on the, I gotta rewind the tape. Anyways, this green looks pretty decent. It's kind of what I'm going for here. I forgot this is what someone mentioned to me before too, is, you know, the colors get brighter when you add the water to it. You know, I kind of forgot about that until I was doing something with it. So that green's really standing out quite a bit more. So, you know, that being said, you know, a lot of times I'm kind of, you know, in my using this, you know, for the first time this week, one of the things that occurred to me was you go into it, you can add your water effects into there or whatever you're going to be doing. And then after that, why not go back in and add a little bit of additional texture right over the top of it and kind of fine tune it if you didn't kind of achieve, you know, that type of shading or whatever you're going after with just, you know, the water, application step. You know what I mean? It could be more of a circular process. That's what I'm always saying with things like dye-based inks too. You know, you can add things in there and go back to lighter colors that you've already previously added in there. You know, you can kind of have things more of I don't know if it's a circular process, but you know, you can go back in and add more things in there a lot of times, you know, as long as the media is somewhat compatible. You know, if I lay down a ton of colored pencils all over this and there's this big slathering of it, you know, I probably can't go in and add too many dye-based inks at the top of it because, you know, the wax, you know, from the colored pencils, not watercolor pencil, but the, you know, just colored pencils are going to work as a resist for that. Okay, so that being said, let's go in and add a little bit more tone. I'm going to go and add a gray in here. This is looking a little bit too anemic up here. Here, let's do this too. Let's go, you know, let's go and add in some smaller, more distant mountains in that background there too, if we can. I'll try to do that. I'll see if I can get a really light impression of this. This one right here. This one's the those Mystic Mountains small. I don't know if it'll have to be the third impression. I think the third impression has enough ink on there. What do you think? Okay, let's see. So 1, 2, and then like that. It just gets, I'll have a little bit of texturing back there. Yeah, I think that looks okay like that. I think that looks still farther back. Maybe it could have been a little bit lighter, right? But I think that's fine. And then let's go and add in some tone to that. You know what? One of the things I haven't really tried very much, I tried it like once, like, I don't know when it was, like a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I'd recommend this because I don't, you know, it's kind of a slow process like this. But adding using a cotton ball for a color applicator, I think it worked okay. I was just kind of fooling around in one of those live streams, and it was like, oh, that did apply a little bit, you know, fairly gracefully. But in this instance, I want a really light application right there, so I'm going to add that in there. This is London Fog. Okay. And I'll just go like this. And we'll create a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a cap over the top of this, I think. And again, kind of going for that kind of top to bottom application, okay? You know, where it's darker up top. Let's see down here too. I'm going to add this in some of the water as well. Um, 100% cotton ball, which is kind of important. Otherwise, this thing isn't just not going to accept any of that ink. It has to be somewhat absorbent. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that gave it a decent kind of glow. Like that. I think there's a certain, I don't know, luminous quality to that. That looks pretty good, I think, like that. Huh? Just with a little bit of gray like that. It's glowing a little bit more through there. I might put another like boat in there, like a smaller one, and then the larger one might be down here. So we go for a little bit of a, oh, kind of a passage like that. But let's go in and add in some of those colors into this and see if we can make this work somehow. All right, so on some of these trees, let's go with, I wasn't thinking of the background trees when I first started doing this, but I did shake up this one because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have most of the pink down in this lower section off the crooked limbs, but let's go ahead and use some of this. And I'll apply like hints of it into these trees like this here. It looks like an inlet I used to kayak in. Oh, I wish I've been to these areas where people just, you know what I mean? They're close to bodies of water and they go kayaking all the time. Like I remember distinctly, I remember someone in my workshop in Seattle talking about going kayaking all the time, you know, and I was on one of those islands. I had to take a ferry out to Paulsbo, I think it was, and there was a kayaker there. But the one place I was thinking about all the time, and just maybe not so much about the location, but just being throwing the kayak, you know, out on the lake after work or something like that, was in the Adirondacks in New York when I was in Rome. And a lot of people there, you know, it's, I don't know, whatever, it's like 20 minutes or 15 minutes from all those, you know, a lot of different lakes up there. But yeah, they were saying, yeah, we go out all the time, you know, after work. So it's like, you know, an image that's stuck in my mind, in my brain, especially after I saw some of those lakes up there. They were all just so scenic, and I don't know. And then being out on a kayak on those ones, Must be really awesome. Okay, let's go and add on a little bit of tone in here. I'm using my colored pencil. I guess you can use your watercolor pencil. I'm not gonna go back in it, over this again, but just some of these greens are a little bit too bright. I wanted it a little bit more subdued. That's a little bit too yellow greenish. So let's go in and just kind of mute it. You can kind of knock down the intensity with either black or white, right? So we'll do it with a little bit of both. I'm doing it with the black colored pencil, but then also I'll do it with the white pigment ink over the top of it. Let's get a little bit more value or volume in these mountains too in the distance, okay? I don't have to be, perfect with this shading, in terms of my smoothness of application or anything like that either, because I'm going to go over it with the white pigment ink, okay, which kind of knocks everything back anyways, and it blends everything at that point in time. That's one of the reasons why, like in these live streams, I don't really get too nervous if something's not looking very good at any given point in the process, because I have my white pigment ink that I can obscure everything with. And that's why I always point out a lot of times in these videos, like, all right, take a look at this and look how rough an application this is right now, During the process, it's, I might have like a real blotchy looking application of whatever pigment ink on, a bit of dark star dream paper or something like that, or, I don't know, real blotchy applications on the top of that printable vinyls, especially where those ones like dry like instantly. All right, so going in here with the 0.7 millimeter acrylic paint pen. And I think this looks really good here. Okay, so this is, there's that pink there. I mean, it's kind of subtle. Let me see. This is going to all go. Wow. Okay, that's as close as I can get. But I think that pink looks like it, it stands out reasonably well against that background. Now, I don't want to just color it all in, okay? I just, everywhere where there's black on the tree, I don't want to just cover it with pink, okay? I want that depth of the black to show through some of these, and I guess they'd represent whatever blossoms or leaves, okay? So I want there to be some body to it. So it's just kind of like stamping it over the general area, like that. I mean, they're supposed to represent leaves. I am going over these leaves with this pink. So now it's, instead of it being leaves, it's blossoms. I don't know, you can have a bit of both too, but... And I do have some different pink hues here too, so we'll use a little bit of, I don't know, let me see. This one might be a little bit too dark, but this is a little bit of a warmer pink. It's a little bit darker. Oh, maybe if we need a little bit more contrast, we can go into like a violet like this too. We'll see how it goes. But I might not need to do too much contrast in there if I retain more of the black of the impression, maybe. Maybe for the closest ones, I'll add on just a few dots like this. Just so that it stands out a little bit more in terms of being closer to it. So if I make it all the same pink right here as in back here, this one will get a little bit more obscure and it'll kind of push it back visually, okay? But I'm doing this because I wanted these blossoms to be kind of in the foreground too. So if it's in the foreground, you know, you'd probably have some blossoms going on in these islands in here, you know, or these land masses going back in the distance. So I didn't think it would make sense just to have them in the foreground. I think it would look okay, but I know this is going to give it a little bit more continuity, I think. All right, so that is that. I don't know. Can you see that pink there on the screen a little bit? Or a decent amount? So in here, I've kind of spaced those dots out a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I put too much on that one, but it was my first one, so I didn't know what I was doing. All right, let's try this pink right here. Hello, Froggy! Froggy Fresh! Kenny got hail. I want some more, you know, California was dumped on as far as like record rainfall this year, but we haven't had it now for about 2 weeks, and I'm kind of missing it a little bit. I was able to turn off the sprinkler system and all that, you know. It's like, oh, today was 83. It goes back and, you know, goes back, temperatures go back down again, but I was thinking, it'd be nice to have like 1 or 2 more like small storms, you know, before the, you know, spring's over. All right, so adding a little bit more pink. This one's brighter, lighter, and a little bit warmer, so that stands out a little bit more. Okay, on this one right here, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to make it too extreme, so maybe I'll try to retain some of those darker areas, so maybe I'll just go over a little bit the pink that I've already applied just to give a little bit more layering. Oh, and when you're doing these mirror cards like this too, if I don't remember to do it, someone remind me to put some of these dots down in the water too, like, you know, some of these blossoms are floating in the water. I should do it in here too. I'll do it in there after if I decide to stamp like a boat or something in there. You don't want to have to stamp over this because it, I don't know, dye-based ink is, or, well, I guess I would stamp it in StazOn or something like that. It's better to, you know, work it around your objects in there. All right, so there's some more pink. So that standing out a little bit more, I think. I think that looks reasonably, I don't know, whatever, blossom E. That's cool, Mary. We want these stamps to be nice and evocative of places where people have been, and in addition to places where I think we haven't been to before too. So it's like a journey to a, you know, whole thing. But I'm sure we're always referencing things that we've you know, we've kind of related to or seen before, you know, too. Past and present, I guess. That's what someone asked me before. I don't know, maybe you guys can answer this too, you know. When you do scenes, are you stamping, how much of it are you stamping like things, places that you've been to or been inspired by? And maybe what is the breakdown between, you know, places that you'd like to be, like, you know, it's really cold in winter and you're going to stamp a, you know, a tropical setting or something like that, you know. I'm just kind of curious. It's something that I don't really think about too much, you know, when I've been doing it, but people have asked me before, you know, that type of thing. Or you know, with the designs, are you designing places, you know, things that you've seen? Or do you stamp places that you know, you've been to or something like that? With me, that's usually not the case. But when I'm doing things, just like, you know, Mary was saying, sometimes it'll remind me of something. You know, I'll stamp a lighthouse or something like that, or, you know, a beach scene or something like that, and it'll take me back, you know, to an instance. It might not look like that area, but I don't know. It'll bring back some memories oftentimes. Okay, going with the white pen here, adding a little bit of white contrast into here, I guess. So I don't know if you can see that a little bit more. I'm going up into some of these trunks. So some of these trunks, you inevitably get some colors, that you've toned in there with in the background. So if you want to kind of bring those out again, you can do it with this, your paint pens like this. You might, I guess on matte paper, maybe you can use a white colored pencil too if you want to go for something a little bit more subtle. Might be kind of interesting. On some of these rocks in here, there's rocks and kind of like grassy moss in these little areas. Okay, so see, what I'm doing is I'm going back in and trying to see some of those rock areas, okay? And I'm just adding a little bit of a highlight on top of them. Like that. I might be just inventing some too where it doesn't exist, but see, that area in there seems a little more dimensional now. With a little bit of highlight on top of it, or like this tree trunk right here, just kind of picking up more kind of lighting like that. See, like that, it just looks a little bit more dimensional. Even, I'm looking at the screen here, even from a little bit of a distance, that little bit of highlight like that kind of varies that area and, kind of expands on the textural range of that area. All right, and here it's a little bit muddled with all that tone, and plus it was very light to begin with in here. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of definition in here onto these areas because it was so light to begin with, and then I went over it with all that tone and the watercolor, whatever application. So it kind of adds a little bit of a, it obscures the forms in there a little bit. So this is a way to go back in and define some of those forms again, to some degree. So that's what I'm often doing on my scenes. It's playing around with textural contrast. It's both soft and sharp. Sometimes things get a little bit too soft and they get muddled, and you can add that sharpness back into it. Sometimes it's a little bit too crisp or something like that. Not in a scene like this, and that's where you go back in, not with this color right here, but with just, some white pigment ink, and you add that softness back in there. You know what I mean? So things are visual, but I'm kind of thinking from a kinesthetic standpoint too, soft versus sharp. And, having a nice balance between those two. All right, let's take a look and see this right here. Let's see if some of those pinks are showing in there a little bit. I guess you can see a little bit of them. A little bit of that hue in here. Okay. I guess you can add some of that little bit of pink back in those hills too, if there's some really distant trees in those that are blooming in those hills. It might be kind of interesting. Okay, let's add some of that pink in our forms down here. Let me get my... Let's see, I think I want to add some of it right around here and right around here. If there's anything that's really cool that's being reflected down here that you don't want to obscure, then don't put too... You see, if I put this right here, I'm not going to be able to see the reflections of this tree too much because it's going to be covering it up. So I think I'll put this over here, but, to keep it, to kind of frame it off from edge to edge, but maybe instead of going up here, you have it like way down here. Okay. So see, this is stamped higher up. So, it's more of a blurred out reflection. So I don't care if I'm adding in something, covering that up. But this one over here, it's more interesting with that tree, so I'm gonna like that. Maybe I'll come up here too. And hopefully this branch looks like, it's like, real kind of three-dimensional looking. And we'll do this with the stays on again. This branch is fairly airy too, so you'll be able to see the things through it, but you know what I mean? do watch for what, you know, could potentially be obscured. It's not a hard thing, you know, you're just kind of, you know, put the scene up there and see where things are reflecting down there. The biggest things are if you have like a moon or a sun in that top area up there, and then you're stamping something like that, you know, you probably don't want to obscure such a prominent, you know, whatever, light source or something like that down in that lower section. All right, so this is just real spindly, but I'm going to apply those little, you know, blossoms to it with the pen. So this is just providing me a little bit of structure. Let me do this too. I'll just do a couple little tiny branches up here. So this I'm probably using about, I don't know, 1/3 of it mostly. A little bit more over here, maybe, I don't know, 2/3, I don't know, whatever, something like that. But see that right there? Okay, and then this will be like that. You can't even see these right here because they're too spindly, but that's where those blossoms will come in, I think. Now, I've used this on the mirrored cardstocks before the acrylic paints, and it works just fine. Now, this one in particular, though, I'm not quite sure how much of this one's going to stand out on here. Because it's a little bit, it's kind of more transparent for some reason. It's one of the thinner colors I've found. You know what I'm going to do, too? I'm going to take this and put this one up. A couple little dots on this tree, just for a little bit of a brighter, maybe, pink. I'm going to put a couple of these down on the, you know, like these blossoms have dropped onto those areas right in here. It's kind of obscure, but can you see that little pink down there? You know, you can't see it too much, but the closer you get, you know, you can see a little bit of that hue down here. All right, so let's see here. Okay. I almost need to look at something before I start doing this. I'm going to add a little bit of white in here first, though. When I tried to do the white over the pink, I was picking up some of that pink yesterday, and I couldn't add the white in there too much. So I'll do the white first. Okay, I'm not going to go too much like that, so looks like that. And then most of where I've applied those little white dots, I'll put a little bit of this pink over the top of it, and maybe it'll kind of blend in with it. One, you know, the dots will blend with each other a little bit. That's what I'm kind of going for. And that, yeah, it's kind of blending a little bit. And I try to make it a little bit kind of irregular. I'll cluster them, and then I'll have like an isolated dot like that, which I think is kind of important. You know, so there's not like a monotony with, you know, these little blossoms. And I say that because, I don't know, we all seem to have this kind of natural thing about patterns sometimes, where when you start applying things like this as stars or dots or whatever, you know, whatever they represent, I always see it, I don't know, like in skies, especially when people are doing stars, it's like all the dots are like perfectly spaced. It's always like that 1/4 inch spacing in between things. All right, let me see how this is looking now, like that. And it does look like those branches are kind of like, you know, 3-dimensional and close to us. I think it does reasonably well. One of the things I was going with those little dots, and I thought maybe I could sandwich them. I can go with another impression of this over the top with the stays on, you know, which might be kind of interesting. If those dots are looking a little bit too weird, you know, and you want to kind of, you know, have them behind something in addition to, right, you know, being right on top like that. All right. I'm going to try that here. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to try stamping over the top of everything again, but I'll just put another branch like that. So this will go over, you know, some of those little dots. I don't know if I can even see it. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. All right. So that is that. All right, let me see these little boats or something like that. Let's see, Linda, you like using the watercolor media with scenic stamps. Not something I do enough of. I haven't done like any of it. That's the problem. But I love watercolor looks. Every time I see someone that does something with, you know, real fluid media, it can even be alcohol inks. I love it. I love the spirit of it and the fluidity of it, you know. I think that looks really cool. Gig Harbor Island. Where is that now? Conked in their backyard. You have me daydreaming about kayaking. I've never done it before. I wanted to take I wanted to go kayaking. I wanted to take my Cub Scout den kayaking at the local lake. We just never got around to it though. Um, you know, when the kids got around to about like fourth and fifth grade, you know, we were going to go rent some kayaks and go out in the local lake, but we just didn't get around to it. That was one of those things I wish that we would have done. Especially when I was den leader. It's like, well, I didn't really want to be the den. I was always an assistant den leader, but it was like, okay, I'm den leader now. Uh, we can do whatever I want. And everyone was really cool with it, though. You know, whatever I chose. Okay, let's see. All right. So this is going to go right there. I'm going to keep my finger there just so I don't forget, because I have a really bad memory. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. One of the things I didn't mention was when you're stamping on top of these types of, you know, really mirrored foil types of things. You know what I mean? Uh, you know, don't be too gingerly with it or something like that. Just go like that, you know, and you know you miss the impression or something like that. But you know, be mindful of your pressure and when you're sitting, you know, be decisive about that because sometimes this, the see, there's a little bit of bow to this too, you know, with those foils and things like that. You know, they get a little curled sometimes. So when you're doing this, you might be saying like this, and by the time it goes like this and it flattens out like that, this might have moved a little bit of it on it because it's so slick on the top. Okay, so you know, just keep that in mind, or see, you can press this. See how this is kind of bowed? You can tell from this little light in here. You can, you know, flatten it out like this and then stamp it. You know. And not really with the, you know, it's mostly with the smaller images I'm finding that I might kind of like, oh my God, I skew it or something like that. Linda B's here in the chat. She says that if you use some stays on ink remover, you can just wipe that right off. One of the things that we've mentioned in past vids here. But see that? Oh, look like that. See that little guy down there too? No, amongst the blossoms. Mary, you're gonna have to do yours, with the kayak in here. But yeah, see, it almost looks like that, that little figure is kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like in the water like that now too, and you get that little parallax going like this, with the distance like that, which is really fun on these mirror cards. All right, now let me see if my other little fishing boat is small enough where I could stamp it right in here, and it would look like, it's farther back in space. If it's not small enough in comparison to this one, I won't do it. But let me see here. Okay, so that one's right there, and I think I could put another. I don't know. Okay, so I was going to put another boat here. Let me just see what it would look like, in terms of size relationship. It would go right here. That's distracting, huh? Yeah, let's not do that one. It looks good with just one, whatever focal point in there, I think. All right. Okay, so if that's the case, then let's darken this in a little bit then. Okay. Let's go back to, where'd that gray go? This is too big of an open area, and it's the same size as this one right here, which I don't like. It's too repetitive. Okay, so let's just darken this in about like so. All right, so I'll just go like that. It change. I don't know. It varies it from this one a little bit. All right, maybe in this one too, I can come up in there like that. Okay, I think that looks better. Just that little bit of tone like that. I don't know, this memento, we've talked about this before on another live stream. This memento, it looks, I know, it looks really blue too now. I don't know, maybe I've mixed my pads or something like that. But I don't know, that color I think looks fairly decent in there, like so. Okay, so let's go and tweak this now a little bit more. Okay, well, that's what I thought. Yeah, Gig Harbor in Seattle. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's where those people were. Those people go kayaking. Although in Seattle, you can go kayaking anywhere, huh? Or in a lot of places. And when I was teaching for, I think it was, maybe it was just 2 days. It seemed like it was 3, but I was teaching in the North Woods in Wisconsin. I flew into Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and it was after summer, so there was no one staying up there. It was probably like it might have been early August. When kids are back in school and stuff like that. But anyways, what I'm getting at was the store that I was teaching at, back then there was, this pre-internet too, I think. So I'd say, hey, where would be a good place for me to stay, while I'm out there? And they hooked me up with this one lake, I don't know, cabin kind of scenario. And there was this campground, and all these cabins, the cabins, I mean, it wasn't primitive or anything like that, there was probably a TV in there, I guess, and full kitchen and everything like that. But I was the only one staying there, so I didn't know anything about that thing. But and sometimes some of the days I got off reasonably early, where I could have taken advantage of it, but I didn't realize that each cabin came with a like a kayak that you can take out on the lake right there. I did see the oars though, But I didn't see the kayak until like the last, I don't know, whatever day I was like checking out or something like that. I did walk around the lake a little bit, on those other, those other days or afternoons or whatever. Okay, so I'm adding this little pigment ink down here and see how it's giving it that little extra kind of, I don't know, cloudy type of look. And this was what I was saying. It was looking a little blotchy up there, a little bit too kind of, that greenish, kind of yellow greenish tinge, So I'm just kind of muting it here. Oh, with some of that white pigment ink like that. Plus it's adding that little cloudy look to it too. Okay, and we'll add some of this down. Remember I wiped off the base of this one. And we'll add a little bit of this cloudy, foggy texturing like that. And then I'll let it go a little bit. Then why don't we add a little bit more right here so it kind of oscillates a little bit. Maybe I'll just leave the tip as is, but... So just like this, you go soft, sharp, soft, okay? If we just make everything kind of obscure and soft, then it doesn't look as soft because we don't have any textural, contrast playing off one another. Okay, so sometimes if you want to make something look even more misty, you don't mist everything out, right? Because there's nothing to contrast against it, right? So you oscillate things. And that's the same thing with light and darkness too, there's light and shade, it's going from dark, light, dark, light. Well, this is light right here, but dark right here, light, dark, like that, So just kind of play contrast with one another, especially with these ones too. I mean, this is one way to use them, but it certainly makes it an easy way because things don't really have to blend together because there's blank space in between all the objects. It kind of cracks me up how these are how easy these are to use, at least in this way, which I think they're really conducive for to give it that type of look like that. All right, so see that like that. Those trees in the foreground like that. I can almost go with more blossoms in there, I think. I was kind of being a little bit more conservative about that. Or maybe I'll go for some of those little blossoms in the water. Let's go, okay, so for the distant ones, and here I'll use this pale pink, and I'll put, some of these petals down in the water. It'll be real subtle in the background because it's supposed to represent something that's, reasonably far away. Just adding a couple little things. You're not going to be able to see it what I'm doing right here because these are too subtle. It's like a, pale little pink against like white. Man, or maybe you can see a little tinge of it in there. That. It's like here, little clusters of them. But let's add some of it down here in this water. Okay, so see this tree right here. Okay, it's maybe dropping its little petals, into this area right in here. Okay. I'm hesitant to put my hand down there, but this is all stays on, so I don't think I need to worry about that. But I'll put this right here because I do get like, like oil from my hand on these silver foil areas all the time. It drives me nuts. And as you guys are always saying in the chat window, Kevin, keep your grubby hands off, the reflection area. Let's put quite a few of these little dots down. I don't think I need to be too conservative with the this 0.7 millimeter here. You know, when people have, you always see it in the movies or something like that. You know, someone's got like got a bunch of rose petals in the bathtub or something like that. Same type of thing. Okay, so see that right in there. I put there they are like that. Okay. I don't know if you can see them like that. They almost disappear, huh? When I go like this, you can see them. So they're just scattered all over the place. And then you go like that. You can see a little bit. Oh, you know why? It's because there's nothing. You can see them when there's like a darker area. So it's like pink against, you know, that darker area on the card. So if I go like this, you can kind of see them in there. It's like an animal out in the wilderness. You can't really see them until they move. You know, because they're so camouflaged. But look at that area. I think that's really fun right there. Look at that. See that figure in there? I don't know. I think that's really a kind of a magical little look to these, you know, these reflection cards, especially when you have something on it like that. And I really like the quote stamps too. I was thinking about doing that on this piece, but when I was thinking about it in concept, I like doing them in white over the silver, but that's when something kind of dark up here is reflecting down in it. And I didn't want to go with like a black impression quote in here. You know, you want to go with a kind of a light, airy text. Although I guess the black would look like it's floating in here, and if it was a little bit, you know, kind of a delicate font or something like that, maybe that would look okay. But I still think that the white looks a little bit kind of more, kind of elegant in that reflection area. Like that. So anyway, so let's see here. Your husband spent most of his childhood summers in Rhineland. That's so cool. I love that area up there, you know. I mean, I was just over there for like the weekend, you know what I mean? I'm driving from the airport to the store to, you know, the place where I'm staying, but just, yeah, that whole area up in there was just beautiful. Driving, you know what I mean? The roads, it's like there's a lake, there's a lake, there's a lake. It was really amazing like that. We can read your chat post if let me see. Did someone answer Linda there? If I had a canoe and a pool, I'm sure I would have been doing that, Froggy Fresh. Oh, Linda, you were a scout leader too. That's awesome. Yeah, those are fun. Those are fun times. My son didn't bridge though. He was um, about to bridge, and then he just lost interest. And it was like everything, you know, with him. I haven't tried things out, but if he like loses interest, even though he had like 1/2 year to go before, you know, going through that whole thing, it's like, okay, you want to quit. He just wasn't interested. And plus he was doing all these other stuff too, so it wasn't like he was doing nothing, but I was like, okay, you know, and you know, but after it was done, it was like, it was kind of nice, you know, not having to come up with all that curriculum all the time for the den. But my den just merged with another den too, so it was cool. Let's see. Glad you like the reflection card, CM. Yeah, but that gen, that's really cool. Yeah. I flew into that Rhinelander airport, and that was right when they were starting those security measures. And I was like the only one in the whole airport, and around the X-ray machine, there were like 4 people going through their whole, you know, their process, you know, the procedure with me. It was kind of a crack up, you know, because you know, I mean, this airport in Rhinelander, you know, Rhinelander is really small. And they were, you know what I mean? They're, you know, they're doing things by the book, but it seemed kind of odd, you know. I was thinking, here I am in this, like the one person in this entire airport, you know. I don't know how many people were on that plane in total, you know, that took off there. Like 10, you know. I usually like to get them early, but yeah, that's the thing that I remember in Rhinelander. And then I drove up to, I forgot the name. Oh, Sainer. That's the I flew into Rhinelander, but the store was in Sainer, Wisconsin, so not too far from the store airport. It's like an hour, I don't know, 45 minutes an hour, I'm guessing. When you take two cars for kayaking and leave one, oh, yeah. Don't leave your keys in your starting car. That's good. That's a good tip there. That's like a car shuttle for like hiking too, like that. Hiking is lots of fun and work. Hello, Bonnie. We just had some fun with the. I don't know. This is a pretty. What time are we on this one right here? 1:20. I mean, if I was to do this card again, I think I can do this, card in, I don't know, 40 minutes, I'm guessing, or something like that. I didn't know how things were going to work out with the paint pens and stuff like that too. All right, so in the Facebook group, didn't we have a pink blossoms or something, pink trees or something like that challenge one time, Linda? Like a year or two ago or something like that. So I think stamping these out in black and then just doing the dots over them, coloring them in, was the way to go with that. Because I think if I colored these trees in, you know, on the stamp and then stamped them out in that pink, it would be too much, I think, It would be too bright, unless we were going for like a super bright kind of, scene, that's kind of really electric or something like that. But I think for this, it's kind of nicer in that subtlety like that. And plus I can add on more, if I can add on more pink in there too, if we want to. But I don't know if you saw this, Bonnie, down here. These are the little branches down here with a little bit of those pink blossoms. But see this right here? I added that white little dot down there. And I don't know if you can see it, but then we went over with I had these pink little dots down here, sparingly, and those are acrylic paint. And then I went in with this one, and I put that little dot down, and while that white was still a little bit wet, you had some of this pink kind of blending into it a little bit. I mean, these dry reasonably fast, but I think that little variation down there helped a little bit. There's a little bit more contrast between these blossoms as opposed to just, a uniform one, value intensity pink in there. Although I think that, I thought that looked okay on here, though anyways, on this one right here. But since this is on silver, and silver, can look black like that, or it can look, like really bright depending on what's kind of reflecting in it. I think that little bit of contrast helped it a little bit like that. So, yeah. So on this one right here, I'll just kind of, the only thing that's left to do on this one is I'll just tape this in here. I don't think this really needs to be spray sealed. You could spray seal it though, before you add it in here. Don't add it in here and then spray seal and get a lot of that spray sealant all over this, or if you do it, just cover this up because you don't want to have too much of that overspray in here. So I think going with the stays on this type of imagery down here is just ideal for that. Sometimes you can't do that because you don't, you have to use like a brilliance or something like that, depending on what you have, or quote stamps or something like that. But then try to keep this as pure as possible and reflective, because while it's really reflective and whatnot, it's not a mirror, so it's only so reflective you can see it like that. It's irregular kind of patterning on the surface like that. So yeah. Let's see. Mary actually did that while cross-country skiing. Hide keys. We need hide keys on those cars, or those little pads or whatever, those security things now where you just add, whatever your handprint on that. When I used to go surfing, I used to keep a key in my wetsuit. And then I used to keep a hide key like underneath a bumper or something like that in one of those magnetic little things like that. Glad you like it, Mary. Mary. Oh, Caroline, a lot of scout experience in here. Scouts, I heard they're hurting for membership now too. Even in the time that I was in it, there was like declining participation. Not in our pack, which had like 100. So there was like tons of kids. But just overall, some of the different locations and Cub Scout Scout locations, they just weren't manned as much anymore. So yeah, I don't know. They're having troubles with membership and doing that like these days. I heard it because there's so many more options these days for things for kids to do. But when I was a kid, I wasn't a scout, but like all my friends were. And yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of things now. It's all the different sports, but all the different types of club things. My son did fencing, swimming, and scouts, and music, piano. It was never ending. Now he's doing parkour, which allows me to do these things on Friday nights. But yeah, glad you like it, Candy. I'm really happy to see how this looks in this reflection scenario right here. So I'll try doing some different things like this with vellum too. Going forward. Here, this one was the vellum card. Now I have this border down here, but you can see what that kind of looks like. In this different setting right here. Here's like that boat right there, and there's a boat here in the foreground. That'd be kind of interesting like that. That's what I was going to do. But on this composition, I thought it just best with the one. So yeah, if you haven't tried I don't see too many people doing these reflection cards, but this little area down here, I mean, it's really minimal, but I think it really adds a really dynamic nature to it. Now, if I didn't have this reflection right that I'm doing on this scenario right here, the only thing that would have changed was this would have been stamped up here, somewhere in here or right here. And then if you want to, you can stamp out these if you wanted it, like right over the top of this, in the corners. You can have it hanging from above, and you can put your little, paint pen marks on that if you want to add in that element of foreground into this type of scenario here, which I think would look good too. But this one right here, it does add that little bit of a extra dynamic type of movement in it, like I said, I think it's called parallax, where this little pivot point right there, that axis, and then there's this thing too. There's this little kind of movement that happens when someone's opening this up. It's like it's a little box of wonder or something like that in there. So, and of course it's going to look a little bit different depending on the lighting that's on it too. So, not so much with this one, but with the holographics and things like that too. But I think that, that reflection down here looks really cool like that. So see that right there too? See where this little pigment ink is added right there, and then none right there, and then right over here, and see how it looks down in that reflection too. Those contrasts right there really added to that, especially that foreground area of, or the waterline area, I should say, right on that closest, object right there. I think it's really effective. So keep that in mind, when applying things like that, textural changes, so we're looking at color and shade and things like that, but think about texture when you're doing your pieces like that. And really, if you haven't done it, I always recommend this, exploring your textural, easy textural additions with your paint pens and, things like white pigment ink. It really can add on a lot of kind of interesting, I don't know, whatever, additional depth and dimension into your pieces, lighting, and it's like I said, it's really easy to do in this case. It's also tree blossoms like that, both on the limb and I don't know if you can see it in there floating in the water. You can barely see it. If someone with a car, someone in hand, they'll be able to see these little reflective areas in there, or floating areas, I should say. So yeah. Yeah, marching band's that big thing too. I wanted my son to go into band because he was doing all that type of, music through middle school and high school. I don't know. He found his own hobby that he loves, so I'm happy with that. But man, those music boosters, man, that was like non-stop working, with that. So when he decided to quit, I was thinking it was another one of those things where it was like, oh, um, yeah, I don't miss that volunteering. Now, I'm going to miss it in general, but, I've been volunteering so much over these last, I don't know, whatever years going back to preschool. So I don't know. It's kind of fun to get a little bit more stamping time in, I guess. All right, Jeannie. Glad you like it. Hope you guys like the card. Like I said, this is an easy construction right here. 4 1/4, 4 1/4. Just fold it into a half-page piece of paper. It doesn't have to be black. And you can add whatever you want on the outside. I added that in a little bit crooked and whatnot, but a little quote on a lake, and whatnot. So fun stuff. Thanks so much for joining in. And yeah, if you have any questions on whatever with the construction of these cards and everything like that, drop me a note and, or email or something like that. But just when you're putting this together, just always put this in here and see where these little things are going to go. So before you stamp this out, in here, hold the card down like that and see where it's going to stand out. And, just gauge it off the positioning of, how people are going to be looking at the card for the most part. So usually at a little bit of a 45-degree angle is like ideal for that. So, I don't know, maybe I should have stamped it out a little bit lower. That's getting kind of close to the, like, see, if I look at it like that, it's in the, that little, landmass, but like that, I don't know. That's a pretty good area like that. So, it's nice and visible. All right, folks. Good night. And hope you have a great rest of evening or day if you're in like Australia or whatever, Europe. Do you have an email, your email in the group? Stampscapes@gmail.com. I don't know. Do I have my email? I format all my videos. It's not going to be in it right now if you open up the, description there like that. But I don't know. The website's in there too. I might not have my email in the description area like that. I want to get like bombarded with spam or something like that. You guys aren't spam though. Talking about those robots that go out and find like email addresses on the web. But yeah, just Stampscapes@gmail. That's easy to remember. Just remember Stampscapes plural with the S at the end, not Stampscape. Stampscapes. All right, good night, everyone. Hope to see you in the next live. And yeah, if you're on Facebook or something like that, or if you do one of these, and if you're not on, whatever social media or something like that, email me your card that you made. Love to see it. Love to see any of the new stuff, especially, old stuff's great too, but, or if you do any of these reflection cards. Hard to take a picture of a reflection card, one of those things. So what you do is you hold, most people are, have phones these days, so you hold your card out like this. You don't have to have it down like this and say, oh my God, I can't find the angle like that. You just, have your hand in the card like that and get the right eye angle and just, snap it like that. And so like here for me, I would take it like this and I would angle it down a little bit more so we can see that person like that. And that would be my photo. Or you can do short videos too. So, like Jeannie and Linda, if you just take a 5-second video or something like that if you're using like reflectives or if you're doing these mirror cards like this, and you can do like this right here on a short video upload. And sometimes people can tell more about what this card is about, when you do something like that. Or like I said on the certainly the holographics, I would show like this is like a still photo and I would try to get that color in there like that. But if you do that short video and you go like this, they really, can tell what this card is about like that. And then especially with the reflection card too, if you go like this and you just go like that, do a little short video upload instead. you know, or if you're emailing your friends or something like that, you know, you can drop those short little video, you know, snippets into your emails, you know, that you want to share with your whatever friends and family or the recipient of your card. Or, well, I guess you wouldn't do that because they'd be getting the card. But it's for your own record though too. All right. Post on Flickr, Froggy. That's what I want with, you know, Linda to do. Everyone post and then share it to the, join the Stampscapes Flickr group too, and then post everything that, you know, Stampscapes, or, you know, you have all your photos too. You can just post all your photos into, you know, your Flickr. Doesn't have to be the new ones, but post the old ones in there too. But, you know, some people don't do, you know, Facebook, so it's a good place for everyone to have access to, you know, some additional samples from everyone in that group. And if you're on Flickr, it's a free, you know, like photo sharing service or whatever. You get there's a free account in which you can upload a ton of, you know, photographs. When you start doing videos, you start running out of, you know, space or something like that. But if it's photos, you can add it up there, and you don't need me to invite you to, you know what I mean? There's this way that I can, if someone posts a card, I can invite you know, them to post that card in the Stampscapes. So you don't need to wait for that. Just post anything that you do Stampscapes related in that group. But sometimes I think people are, you know, think that, I don't know if I should post it in there. You know what I mean? But I want everyone, you know, to do that. So, you know, people that aren't, you know, that don't want to do social media, you know, I don't know, I guess it's mainly Facebook these days, but Twitter and Tumblr, stuff like that, Pinterest, you know, but they just want to look at some cool cards. It's a good place to do it still. Yeah. All right. So everyone, thanks again for joining in, and yeah, we'll hope to see you on the next live stream. I had a blast with this one right here. I'm really glad, like how it turned out, you know, with the different colors in here too, with the watercolor pencils. So a lot of experimenting to come with those watercolor pencils, and yet another medium to explore. It's never ending. All right, have a great rest of night.